Alright, so this is chapter 5 on photosynthesis. So we start this out by looking at a bird here that is eating berries. And so even though the bird is not doing photosynthesis, it is still an organism that is dependent on photosynthesis occurring on the planet because it's eating a plant that relies on photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is done by plants. Up here we have an example of a fern. Algae we can see here in this water, and certain bacteria called cyanobacteria. They're considered photoautotrophs that carry out photosynthesis. Autotroph means self-feeder. Photo means it uses light for the energy to do this. Algae can actually grow over enormous areas in water at times and completely cover the surface. So the energy stored in carbohydrate molecules from photosynthesis will pass through the food chain. So we have the plants that are going to actually do the photosynthesis, and then we're going to have the herbivores that are going to eat those plants, and then those animals will be eaten by other predators. So here you've got the predator that eats these deer that will get energy that actually originated in the photosynthetic vegetation that the deer consumed. Photosynthesis is going to be the origin of the products that actually compromise the main elements of the human diet. So even though you walk down the grocery store here and see lots of different things that don't look like plants, a good large portion of them actually came from either plant or animal products that have been processed to fit in these boxes and packages here. If you go over into the produce section, it's pretty easy to see that they are plants. So photosynthesis will use solar energy and carbon dioxide, and then it will release water and oxygen as byproducts, and it will end up making your energy storing sugar molecules. So the equation for it is you start out with carbon dioxide. You're actually going to need 6 of them. It will react with 6 waters. In the presence of sunlight, sunlight is going to provide the energy to make the bonds and glue those together to produce 1 sugar, in this case glucose, and release 6 oxygens. So not all parts of the plant carry out photosynthesis. It's only going to be the green portions of the plant. The roots that are underground do not do photosynthesis at all. And then once you're looking in the leaf, not all cells of the leaf carry out photosynthesis. It's going to be the cells within the middle layer that have chloroplasts, and those will contain the photosynthetic apparatus. So here you can see this leaf. This is a cross section of it. Here you're going to have a cell that's got chloroplasts, and photosynthesis will occur here within the membranes in the chloroplasts. So your autotrophs are organisms that capture their light energy from the sun, and they convert it into chemical energy. They use this to build the food molecules. So when we look at light, it's going to behave as both a particle and a wave. When we look at waves, they do have energy, and the wavelength is going to be the length of distance between 2 consecutive points along the wave. So here you've got the crest, a trough, and another crest. The wavelength is the point from crest to crest. Sun is going to emit energy in the form of electromagnetic radiation, which is going to be these waves, and it will exist at different wavelengths. Each has its own characteristic energy. So down here where you've got gamma rays, you've got smaller waves, but they're going to have higher energy. Over here where you've got the radio waves, these are going to have longer wavelengths, but they're going to be lower energy. And then here in the middle is where you've got your visible light spectrum. It's just one type of energy that's emitted from the sun, and you have a range of wavelengths that will go from violet to red. So some plants do very well growing in the shade. These are going to have a variety of light absorbing pigments, and that will allow them to absorb different wavelengths of light. And this will allow it to absorb any light that passes through the taller trees. So your light energy is absorbed by the chlorophyll molecule. So the light comes in, here is your chlorophyll. And then it's going to get passed along a pathway to other chlorophyll molecules. The energy will result in a molecule of chlorophyll being found, or it ends up in a molecule of chlorophyll found in the reaction center. This is going to excite one of the electrons enough that it will leave the molecule and be transferred to a nearby primary electron acceptor. Excuse me. So here we can see the light from the energy coming in, bringing in the energy. The electron is going to be excited and go up to this primary electron acceptor. So a molecule of water will split to release that electron, which is needed to replace the one donated. So oxygen and hydrogen ions are also formed from the splitting of water. So from photosystem 2, you have this excited electron here that's going to travel along a series of proteins. So you'll notice this looks just like the electron transport chain does in cellular respiration. And it is indeed another electron transport chain. This is going to use energy from the electron to pump hydrogen ions to the interior of the thylakoid. And then a pigment molecule in photosystem 1 will accept the electron. So you have photosystem 2 that gets excited, passes its electron down. Photosystem 1 will get excited, and you're going to have more electrons being passed down the chain. So what you end up with, again, is the separation of the hydrogen ions across the membrane and the ATP synthase that's going to work just the same as it does in cellular respiration. Those hydrogen ions, their drive to come across the membrane is going to provide the energy that we need to glue that third phosphate onto ADP and make ATP. So that is what has happened in these light-dependent reactions, is you've harvested the energy from sunlight, passed it through an electron transport chain, and made ATP. You're also going to have electrons being transferred on NADPH here. So the light-dependent reactions harness energy from the sun and produce ATP and NADPH. These energy-carrying molecules are then going to travel into the stroma. So here is your outer membrane, here are the thylakoids, here is the stroma, and this is where the Calvin cycle will take place. So the Calvin cycle is going to take carbon dioxide and incorporate it in with other carbon-containing molecules and glue them together enough to make sugars. After it releases the sugar, it will regenerate itself through this RUBP to take in another carbon dioxide. What's going to provide the energy to glue this carbon dioxide onto the existing carbon molecules is going to be the ATP and the electrons from the NADPH. After those are used, they will be sent back down to the light harvesting area and be recycled to help do the light-dependent reactions again. So the Calvin cycle has 3 stages to it. In stage 1, you have the enzyme Rubisco that's going to incorporate carbon dioxide out of the air into an organic molecule. So it will attach onto the carbons. We call this carbon fixation. And you're going to have ATP being put into this here. In stage 2, the organic molecule gets reduced. Reduced actually means gaining electrons. So it's going to gain electrons from this NADPH, and you will have the NADP plus be released that can go pick up electrons again. In stage 3, You've had the sugar get pulled off. You've got RUBP that's going to get regenerated by putting 3 more ATP into the mix so that the cycle can continue. So some plants do live in harsh conditions like the desert plants. This is an example of a cactus. And they have to adapt some variations in their reactions outside the Calvin cycle. So some ways that they will do this is to increase efficiency and help conserve water. If you have a photosynthetic prokaryote, they don't have any organelles, including the chloroplasts. So instead of having a chloroplast, what they're going to have is an infolded region of the plasma membrane that will function like the thylakoids. So all of the necessary components to carry out photosynthesis are going to be in these folds here. So with the carbon cycle, you've got the reactions of photosynthesis and cellular respiration that are going to share reciprocal reactants and products. The animal is going to consume the oxygen and release carbon dioxide. The plants are going to consume the carbon dioxide and release oxygen. So things are going to be transferred between them. They're interdependent.